Punchline. Now, Punchline is a show that I watched the first episode to and immediately dropped when it was airing. Only later did I find out that the show had a little more to offer than I was initially led to believe. On the surface, Punchline is a show about Iridatsu Yuta, who is the main character, who has a problem with fainting whenever he sees a girl's underpants. Through some strange circumstances, Yuta's soul is severed from his body, and he meets this cat. Now, this show is very much about going through the days, learning a few bits and pieces of information that you didn't know earlier, and then getting to the point where the main character screws up and has to start over. If you're familiar with the movie Edge of Tomorrow, you'll understand what this is kind of about. Each time the character learns something different that is very essential to the plotline. The main purpose of each life is to somehow avert a disaster, this meteor that is coming down to destroy everything. Now, when the main character sees a woman's panties, this meteor immediately drops for some reason. And watching the show, you get more and more confused as you go until you get to hit an epiphany point in the show. Everything starts to make sense. You're drawn in more and more. Things that you thought were just normal things were not normal. You see things from different perspectives. Timelines are being messed with. There are all kinds of supernatural things occurring, and I was just not expecting this. Originally, this was actually very, very high on my list, but I think that was mainly because I had just finished it. But I really believe if you guys can get through the first few episodes, like I did when I picked it back up, I kind of drove through it, you'll get to the point where you're just going to keep going. And this isn't a show that will resonate with everyone. I'm quite aware of that. I don't think it's something that you should completely write off. And you need to experience for yourself to evaluate whether it is something for you or not. So, I will say this is made by MAPPA. MAPPA is one of my favorite studios, and it is also very, very beautifully drawn with really eye-popping colors. And yeah, overall, there's even the combat sequences that are in this. There are a few combat sequences are intense. They're insane. The fluidity of the combat, the fluidity of the battles. Oh, it's really, really well done. Please give it a shot. You may not regret it. Let's say that. That's all for Punchline. Speaking of shows that you picked up and almost dropped in the first episode, Food Wars, or Shokugeki no Soma. Food Wars is something that immediately turned off a lot of people because of its emphasis on ecchi in the first and some of its second episode. I fell for this trap. A lot of people fell for it. But underneath and past those first two episodes, you'll find a gem. So this show is about Soma, who is a 15-year-old who has been helping out his dad in running a diner. He very much wants to be the best chef possible, and he has been cooking since he was very, very young. He is quite knowledgeable and is a very, very good chef. The quality of chefs in this show is insane. To emphasize this, every time some food is cooked in this show and a character eats it, it is played out in a way that it seems like the character eating it is having an orgasm. Now, this is the main part I'm talking about where people were turned away from this. These sequences are very, very much overplayed, but if you get past this, you will find a show that is very much a battle/competition show. A little later on in the show, Soma, the main character, is admitted to a very, very competitive, top-of-the-line academy for food, where he must compete against chefs that have just as much potential as him. Cook-offs are amazing. The way the food is portrayed is beautiful. The manga itself has recipes that you can cook. It is very much a show that is built around hype. You will get hyped about this food that they're cooking. It is intense. Me being someone that is very much someone that loves overpowered characters, Soma is one of those characters, but it's also in a believable manner. Because of how he is raised, it is believable that he'll be a very good chef, and he explains why the food that he made is so good. And the processes and the detail they put into each of them is amazing. The characters are very extreme, but that is even better. The personalities are unique for each person. You very much start having this friendship vibe with the characters. You want them to succeed, and that is really, really why I loved watching this show. And I really believe that you should give it a shot. If you were turned away initially by this, give it a shot. If you love competitions, sports anime, give it a shot. If you like food, give it a shot. If you like beautiful visuals, give it a shot. If you just like great characters, give it a shot. So what I'm basically telling you is, if you haven't already, give it a shot. Season 3 of Kuroko No Basket. Kuroko No Basket was the very first show that I watched that really got me into sports anime. Now, sports anime is my favorite genre of anime, and that is why I will always love Kuroko. Kuroko has moved up and down on this list while I was making it. Ultimately, it has been shuffled around, and it could be very high on the list, and it could be lower on the list. I have had a very hard time ranking this. What I will say is Kuroko is absolutely worth investing in. If you have not watched Kuroko no Basket, if I was to give you a shorthand version of what it basically is a sports anime equivalent of Dragon Ball Z. What do I mean by that? Kuroko no Basket has a host of characters that have basically superpowers. It is something that is rooted in reality, but is turned up to 11. It is the extreme, the most extreme you can get. As for an example, there is someone who basically, if he has time, he can basically shoot a three-pointer from anywhere on the court. These powers are accented by having the hair color of the character basically be a streak behind the ball every time they do it. So it's very much like you associate one color with one character, and even their names are based around a color. And these characters are known as the Generation of Miracles. The Generation of Miracles is a group of basketball players that is known for being above and beyond any of the other players, and each of them went to the same school. Our main character was someone who went to middle school with all of these players and is known as the Phantom Sixth Man because he has the ability to basically be forgotten. He has no presence whatsoever and disappears a lot. Basically, he is the equivalent of invisibility in basketball. Sports anime is one of my favorites because of its ability to make me care about a group of people I love the dynamics that are made between teams, and it gives you a very home vibe, something that is very familiar. After you wait a little bit for a new season, it very much feels like, oh man, I missed this so much, and it gives you a warm feeling when the main characters are working together and having a good time. You feel like you really, really know them. The third season is basically the latter part of the tournament that did not finish in the first season. The second season, it is a continuation, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I do believe that the games that were played in this season are very much in my top games. The budget was very much saved for these last few episodes, and stylistically it went all in. Some of the plot lines that were done in the very last part of Season 3 was not believable for me. It felt like that basically the main antagonist had been put up on such a pedestal that there had to be a certain level of incredulous things happening for them to overcome this individual, and that left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, and that's probably why this is lower on the list than I thought. It is also my second favorite season. I enjoyed the second season the best because, my favorite character is Alamine, so I'm going to be a little biased towards season 2, but it was a very successful, a very fun show to watch, and that is ultimately why it is high on this list. Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, second season. Now, if you were to give an award for the best looking show of the year, I would say Fate Stay Night takes it without competition. I'm a huge Fate Zero fan. That is a show that I've watched maybe 6 times now. I'm very invested in the mythos. I very much enjoy the setup of the series. If you're not aware, the series centers around a Holy Grail war in which there are 7 masters that are battling each other to obtain the Holy Grail, a vessel that will grant you any wish. Each of these masters is given a servant from the various classes. These classes include the Saber class, the Archer class, the Lancer class, Berserker, Caster, Assassin, and Rider. If I missed one, that's not 7, I apologize. I'm doing this off the top of my head. The main reason I loved Fate Zero so much was because each character had a very different set of ideals that were believable. Each of them had something that they really, really wanted to obtain. This season of Unlimited Blade Works, and Unlimited Blade Works in general, could have been ranked at the top of this list were it not for my utter dislike of the main character. I'm very much alone in this. I've had a few of my commentary, I've had a few of my subscribers agree with me, but ultimately there was a lot of hate when I said that I did not like Shiro as a character. Very much I believe that everything that I had problems with had to do with him. Thematically, he was the reason that the plotline was very plagued, and the monologues that were being said were very stale and overdone. But there were a lot of highlights that I felt just on their own made that series more enjoyable for me. You have to remember, critically I would put this show lower on the list for sure, but the fight scenes and the dynamic between some of the other masters Rin in particular, I very much enjoyed Rin. Also, a certain blonde-haired character in a black jacket is one of my favorite characters ever. Is a main force in this show, and that very much increased my love of this. And ultimately, most of the enjoyment that occurred for me in this was basically the fight scenes. That alone was enough to carry it this high on this list. I just wish that it was a little more darker and had a more likable character like in Fate Zero. Well, I shouldn't say likable, a more multifaceted character. It was hard for me to believe that someone as unyielding as Shiro was a good character. He himself stated multiple times that his ideals are not very smart. They're not something that can be accomplished, but he's going to try anyway. A protagonist that wants to save everyone is not new. My main problem with this character is how often his ideals are stated in a way that does not make you really feel that the character is being smart about what he wants. The problem that I have is how in your face all this is presented in. Whether it's in a riddle-like format when there's a monologue going on, or when it's simply him, Shiro, the main character, speaking about it to you. Now, I'm being very negative right now, but I want to say, when I was watching it, I was having a very positive experience. It's just looking back on it, I felt like it missed the mark because it had potential to be so good, and that's the only reason I'm being so critical of it right now. I was looking forward to this so much, and I was sure it was going to be my favorite show of the year, and it just really upsets me that this element of it hindered it so much for me when a lot of people had no problems with it whatsoever. But say what you will, I do believe the Fate franchise itself is very much worth looking into. I've not seen the Fate arc of Fate Stay Night, only the Unlimited Blade Works path so far. I'm holding out hope that they maybe redo it with UFO Table, make it really beautiful and more easy to watch. I don't want to really watch the Studio Dean adaptation, but yeah, I spoke about this in length because I feel probably the strongest about this than any other thing in this entire list. Bicky Euphonium. This is a show that I picked up maybe 3 days ago. It's only been a little bit when I was picking up shows that were talked about very positively, and I wanted to experience them for myself when I was making this list. This show very much caught me off guard. I was expecting it to be a beautiful show, but I was not sure how good the storyline would be. The storyline itself is pretty good. I will have to say it is very well paced. The conflicts that are presented are very good. The show is basically about a middle school student who played euphonium, which is a bass instrument. It is like basically a smaller version of a tuba. And she is going on to high school and wants to have a fresh start, and basically gets roped into playing euphonium again. And this is quite different from her experience in middle school, in which the emphasis was not as much on competition, and very much now the school wants to focus on going to nationals. That is the ultimate goal of this series. The band comes together through a lot of tension. There are all kinds of elements like lazy students, people that want to try a lot harder than everyone else, basically people that think they are too good to practice, and very much things that you would expect in this kind of situation. I was personally a part of band when I was in high school. I joined very, very late, halfway through my sophomore year. So I played trumpet for about a year and a half, and I had to contend. I had to contend with people 2.5 years. Yeah, I had to contend with people that had been playing basically ever since they were in fifth grade. And learning music was very difficult, but I very much grew to love it. And this show just had so much nostalgia for me. I remember the feeling of having to audition right alongside the main character. I could feel the tension. I was getting really scared for the main character. I really wanted them to succeed. Oh my god, the sound of the band warming up lit my... Oh my god, I was so happy. I was like, I did not believe I would be nostalgic about something as simple as doing like a scale at the beginning of band. How wonderful the show looks. The instruments being played look fantastic. They're actually doing the right finger combinations. Whenever I saw trumpet, I was fanboying this whole time. When they were doing marching band, I watched this show in one sitting, and I loved every single moment of it. Oh my god. Like, if it were not for some of these other shows that are coming up, this could have been my favorite show of the year. And if you have any connection to music, if you've played an instrument, I do hope you check out this show. And it basically... if you want to see things from a very familiar perspective, as well as how they do things in Japan is not all different, but there are different aspects that are fascinating if you've been through this process before. If you haven't, I do think that it is a good plotline, storyline, and it will give you some inside information as to how students learn music if you were never part of that process. And it is also a show that introduces some fascinating characters. Characters that usually that aren't sure of themselves, that find confidence, of a conductor, a teacher that is very much focused on having a student succeed, a very famous teacher as well. And a friendship dynamic that is very different among girls that have a variety of backgrounds. You have the girl that has played music for a long time, 7 years. There is also a girl that has not played a day in her life, and I very much could relate to her because I was that person that walked into band without any experience whatsoever and having to find my way. And that is exactly what they show in one arc of the show. I don't know what else to say. I love this show. And if you haven't watched it already, I really hope you give it a shot. So, yeah. Seven Deadly Sins, Man with a Mission. Oh my god, if you guys have not heard the opening to Seven Deadly Sins, watch it right now. That may be one of the best openings made. If you're not aware of Seven Deadly Sins, Seven Deadly Sins is a show that is centered in a period that is very much similar to the Middle Ages. There are knights around castles and stuff. Very cool. It centers around a group of people known as the Seven Deadly Sins who have basically been put on a wanted list, and they are basically being hunted, and a lot of people don't know where they are or what happened to these individuals. They were run out of the kingdom, and they used to be knights that actually worked for the ruling party. This is a shonen manga with very, very compelling characters. Characters that you will fall in love with, that I fell in love with fairly quickly. It is a show that I started and stopped watching because the first episode isn't the best, but it picks up very quickly. There are powers, very, very ridiculous powers and battles that are amazing. There are backstories that are very compelling, and basically I felt that the main characters were very, very likable, and I just had an overall amazing time with this show. And I do feel that you can't really say too much about this show besides saying, yeah, that it's a heart-pounding, fast-paced, power-based shonen show that caught me off guard. That looked kind of generic to me, but when I watched it, I just was having fun every single time. Every time there was a new character introduced. It is very much a integral part of enjoying the show, like just being fascinated as to what the next sin will be like, because you're not introduced to all of them right away. You start with the main character, who is Meliodas, and through their adventures they meet the other sins that have either been in hiding or are being punished in some way by being locked away, and you are just thrown into like a different fantasy world, and it's different than a lot of things that I've ever seen. And I truly believe that this is something worth looking into. If you haven't already, it is in the top 5 of my list for a reason. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I cannot wait for season 2, which is supposed to be in 2016. So, yeah, 7 Deadly Sins.
You got to know knowledge that we are gifted just for being human. We are absolute predator. We do not even have any enemies. Maybe they're not anymore. Watching us, thinking that someday we will be dead.
Alright, so Parasite. Parasite is a show that I almost forgot actually ended this year, so of course this is going to be very high on my list. Parasite is a show about a 17-year-old boy named Shinichi, who is a normal student. He lives in Tokyo with his mom and dad. He's a single kid, an only child. One day, while he is trying to sleep, there is a parasite that shows up, a small green worm-like creature that tries to worm its way into Shinichi's brain. Now, Shinichi cuts off the circulation to his arm and prevents the parasite from reaching the brain, and it manifests in his right hand. The word for right hand is Migi, and therefore we have the character of Migi, a parasite that learns human, like it learns Japanese and learns to speak and think for himself. It is a creature that learns very, very fast, takes in knowledge extremely efficiently, and from then on, there is a bit of a beacon on Shinichi. His life is never going to be the same. There are other parasites around, and parasites are things that have been eating other humans, and they take on the form of a regular human until they eat them, and until they warp into these grotesque forms full of teeth and eat human beings. This is a problem because since parasites can kind of sense each other, so he is someone who is not entirely a parasite. He is part human with a parasite attached to him, and therefore is considered a threat by the other parasites. And this basically leads to all sorts of adventures, and led to one of my favorite shows of the year. Parasite is supposed to be a horror anime. Horror has never really scared me in anime form. This is more of an intriguing story with a very unique scenario. It's interesting to see just how Shinichi deals with it, and he has to live a normal life with this being that is on his arm, and he has to make sure that the people that he cares about are safe, because he himself is a safety hazard for those individuals he cares about, and he doesn't want to get outed to, like government officials or anything, because it's not normal, and he would be subject to like tests and maybe extermination. There's all kinds of considerations to make, and it just turns out to be this fascinating, very high pace, high intensity show in which you have the everyday component of Shinichi trying to live his day-to-day life alongside this thing on his arm, and then you have the moments where Shinichi is coming face to face with these beings, and he has to defend himself, and it's just fascinating to watch. And I recommend it. It is so good. It's so brilliant. Yeah, totally watch Parasite if you haven't already. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was a show that I watched for the first time last year. I watched through the entire first season, and then this Stardust Crusaders was announced. If you are not aware of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it is a very quirky show. It is about the Joestar family, a few individuals that are pretty talented and all. It's a Joseph Joestar, and there's Jonathan Joestar is the first Joestar, and he's in the first season a very affluent individual from a pretty well-off family. Follow his adventures, and that season has more of a vampire focus. The second part of the first season is based off of Joseph Joestar, which I found to be a funnier, a funnier and better section. If you're gonna go back and watch JoJo's, definitely watch the first one. There's a lot of interesting scenes in that, but I don't think that the meat of it hits until the second season, in which there are powers, like very specific powers introduced, there's the individuals in the second part are amazing. And then let's focus on Stardust Crusaders though. But Stardust Crusaders is very different from the first two parts. Stardust Crusaders centers around Kujo Jotaro, who is a high school student who looks nothing like a high school student. You will immediately notice that these people do not look their age. They are super manly. They love to pose, and they are cool as hell. that is what JoJo's is. That's what a JoJo character is. The moments are ridiculous. The powers, which are known as stands, which are basically manifestations of personas. If you've ever played Persona 4, there are the tarot cards. And a lot of the personas are based off of tarot cards that you're facing. So, you'll have like the Tower, the, death, stuff like that. And there'll be these personas or creatures that are attached to each individual that have specific powers. And the whole purpose of Stardust Crusaders is the main character is trying to save his mother, who has come down with this sickness, and it can only be handled by tracking down this one evil individual. And it's basically a trek across multiple countries, which was fascinating to see. You see, you go through a lot of Asia, and they have to go all the way to Egypt, and it's quite the journey with all kinds of hilarious moments. It's one of the funniest, pure shows I've seen in a long time, and I enjoy every moment of it. If you've never tried JoJo's, please try JoJos. There is another season coming, and each season has something new to offer, and it never gets old for me, and I just love it. I love it so much. So, Stardust Crusaders. All right, top of the list. We're getting near the end. 2 left. This will surprise some of you because, well, it might not surprise some of you because I said that One Punch Man isn't necessarily my favorite. This and number 1 have been flip-flopping for me a lot. I have had to think quite hard about this choice. To me, both of these are number 1, but having to rank them, One Punch Man ended up number 2. One Punch Man, probably the most hyped show that came out this year, based off of a webcomic which was later turned into a properly drawn manga by the author One. Is about Saitama, who is a hero for fun. It is a man who beats every one of his opponents with a single punch, and that is why he is known as the One Punch Man. One of the best looking shows of the year. Very, very funny, filled with all kinds of insane, intense personalities. Like me, a lot of you guys may be thinking, okay, this is a show about a dude who finishes off people in one punch. How can that possibly be entertaining? I mean, none of the fights are going to last very long. And this is exactly what my attitude was like before I came into this. Give it a shot. You know, there's a ton of people that were talking about how this is probably going to be the best thing ever. They've been waiting for who knows how long for this to be made, and people making guarantees left, right, and center. This is it. This is the show to look out for. So I watched it, and yeah, it was amazing. It's not necessarily about how the fights last. A lot of them are based off of the comedy, as I said earlier, and how the battles are won. A lot of the battles are drawn out. A lot of the battles are not done by Saitama himself. He does have a companion named Genos, who is a cyborg, basically a little disciple of his, that wants to become as strong as possible so he can hunt down a certain evil cyborg that wronged him in the past. And their little, their companionship is wonderful to watch. The colorful cast is amazing. So many cool things about this. The one thing you cannot undersell in this is the animation. There's only one show on this list that has better animation, in my opinion, and that is Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, aka Unlimited Budget Works. But that is such an anomaly that it's unfair to compare anything to it, in my opinion, because Ufotable has a level of polish and brilliance to their animation that just cannot be... I don't know if anything can rival it. But One Punch Man is very much a labor of love by a lot of people that came into this project, offered extra time. There's all kinds of little nuances in the animation. You can tell that there are a group of people that worked on this, a different person per action sequence sometimes, because the art and animation styles change a lot when there are fights going on, especially in the first few episodes, and it does not feel bad. Like, that may sound bad, but it is actually done to great effect. It's just all you can say about One Punch Man is that it's pure fun. Fun is the best way to establish what this is. If you want to have fun, watch One Punch Man. That's what I have to say. Number 1, or sometimes it was number 2 on this list, but like I said, flip-flopping. Prison School. This show surprised the hell out of me. I am someone that does not particularly enjoy ecchi stuff. I'm someone that it's pretty difficult for me to laugh out loud for an entire episode. And Prison School is something that did that. So Prison School is a show about a group of guys that get accepted into a former all-girls school. These guys are, they're just like, this is heaven. There's all these girls. I'm going to get a date, get a nice hot girlfriend. That's all they care about. Now, very early on, they are caught for peeping and sent to prison in the school. And the strange things that are happening every single day, because this school is run by a student council that has way too much power. They're able to punish these boys however they want. Some of the things that they want them to do are ridiculous, but the personalities, how brilliantly, I don't understand how something could be this funny. I have live reactions to this. They're under the name Locked Up Boys, if you looked it up, because, I was having some trouble with, copyright and stuff, so I had to change the name, but those reactions, I have so much fun with those. This was definitely one, alongside One Punch Man, where I couldn't wait for the next episode. Because it's just so brilliant. I heard about this around a year ago when I was listening to a podcast. They're talking about how wonderful this manga is, and it's one of the funniest things that they've ever read. And lo and behold, that is exactly what it is. The art style is fairly unique, and I can't tell you guys how much I want a second season for this. This and One Punch Man need a second season. If they do not get it, I will be upset. Yeah, so if you want something that is freaking hilarious, I do know this show is not for everyone. You do have to get past the ecchi stuff. Though like I said, I did not have that much trouble with it. In fact, it was funny to me, a lot of it. But oh my god, I looked at the PV and I was like, I can't enjoy this, and I picked it up like a week or two later just because I heard the reception, and then when I watched it, I was like, oh my god, no, oh my god. Like I was saying, it's not for everyone. I showed my roommate, and he felt so awkward about the show that he said he couldn't finish an episode. So I fully understand if you don't agree with this choice, but to me personally, I enjoyed this show more than any other show this year, and you need to try it. If you haven't, give it a shot. Just give it a shot. That's all you need to do. I watched Shimoneta, the world where you couldn't say perverted things. I don't know. I forget what the actual name is. That was an ecchi show as well, but I couldn't sit through that. But Prison School, I could. That might be strange, but you can be surprised. Give it a shot. I'm telling you. If you don't enjoy it and you watch it and you don't enjoy it, cool, man. The people have different tastes, but give it a shot. Give it a shot, please. So before finishing off this video, I wanted to give a shout out to a few shows that I did not feature in this. Namely, I want to give a shout out to Gintama, which is airing right now. If you are not watching that, you should be. Catch up as much as you can. It is a long-running show, but Gintama, if I was to give you my favorite show of the year that is still running, like including running shows, Gintama would probably be up there. And I would also say that Haikyuu Season 2 has been going fantastic. And one show that I left out is Rakudai Kishi no Cavalry, which is was a show that was recommended to me as something that may look like just a general harem show, but it is better than that. In a field where you see a lot of anime where love is like the end goal, this is a show that embraces romance from the get-go, and it's more about how a relationship plays out. And I loved the romance aspects. It is ecchi, so if you're not into ecchi stuff, not for you, but it has some of the best battles I've seen all year. So those alone really, really warrant a watch. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to that. I also wanted to give attention to a few shows that I was never able to watch, but I've heard very good things about. Just so you guys could maybe look up, reviews or thoughts from other people about these particular shows, and just have more to look into. The first thing I would say is Shirobako. Shirobako was a show that I started, but I never finished. It's about basically about the anime industry and how anime is made. It's a pretty eye-opening show. I watched some of it. I just wasn't able to complete it. I do plan on completing that show. Charlotte, which is a show that I'm watching right now, which is about an individual that can take over someone else's body for 5 seconds and uses it to cheat into a prestigious school, and who basically tries to establish an opinion of himself that is higher than he deserves, and he is caught and taken in by other people that have powers. And that is as much as I know about the show, because I've only seen episode 1, but I have this on my list to do. Next on the list is Assassination Classroom. I know this is a show that a lot of people enjoyed. I personally did not. It just didn't resonate with me. I've tried to go back and finish it just recently, and I just can't get myself hyped up enough about the show. It's just not for me, but I know there's a lot of people who love that show. Ore Monogatari, My Love Story, was a show. It's a romance show about a guy, a bigger dude, a not as good looking dude, that is in love with a pretty girl whose best friend has all the good looks. It's an interesting dynamic. I watched the first episode. Was a little too cutesy for me, but if you're looking for a good romance, I have heard that it's a really good show. That is also one that I plan to go back to one day. Lastly, I will say Gundam The Origin. That I'm holding off on that until I've watched the other Gundam shows, but Gundam The Origin is supposedly fantastic, and if you're a Gundam fan, that is something for you to check out. And that is all the recommendations I have for shows that I have not seen. So yeah, that is my best anime of 2015 list, top 20, and then plus some recommendations and some shoutouts. I hope you enjoyed this. It is not a definitive list by any means. Like I said, it is solely my opinion. I hope I was informational and I helped you guys find some things that you may be interested in. And yeah, this is like I've said about my channel, it is mainly for discussion's sake. I am all about having discussions, so I would love to hear how you sit with my list. Do you have different shows? Are there shows that I should have paid attention to? Things that I'm not aware of? Do you think some things are ranked too high or some too low? Did you enjoy things differently? I would love to hear all about that. I read all the comments, as I've said, all the time. I may not respond to every comment, but I do read them. So yeah, this has been a fun video to make. I've been making this list for a while. Most of my thoughts and stuff are pretty impromptu, but it's been fun. My throat hurts like hell because I've been talking for a long time, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there in a coherent manner, and I wanted to do it a little better. I hope the cuts and stuff weren't too bad. It's my first attempt at doing something like this. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little list. So yeah, until next time, thank you for watching. See you guys later. Bye.